Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Philip Brown, who is the Managing Director Risk at the Citi Microfinance unit in London, I believe, Philip.
Yes.
And you are going to tell us a little bit about the role that you and your organization have played in putting together this amazing Asia Microfinance Forum 2010, 4 years, and here we are again. Thank you for your long-standing contributions to the Banking with the Poor efforts in Asia. But the particular topic that we have chosen of financial inclusion, I understand it means a lot to Citi.
Yes.
What do you think the stakeholders, particularly microfinance practitioners, are going to take away from 2010 financial inclusion, achieving Asia's potential?
Well, I think they're actually going to take away the sort of progress that's been made. And I think the momentum, a bit like the momentum that we see, that we've heard in the speeches in terms of Sri Lanka and the momentum for growth now here, that basically the industry has been maturing and graduating and is now in a phase where it's, I think, in a phase where it's really sort of scaling up. As a result of that, you've probably seen or heard that there's some of the issues that have been coming out on commercialization, on the transformation, on mission drift, and all these other issues that have been raised really signify the fact that the industry is maturing. The discussion is really not that microfinance should exist or should it scale up, but really, who can it reach? How can it go further? The discussion in Sri Lanka, as you know, has been how can it reach further parts of the island. So I think that hopefully the participants here will go away with the feeling that there is real momentum behind the sector. And I think that that's a sort of general message. I mean, from our standpoint, Citi Microfinance came into existence in 2005. The bank's been involved in microfinance for the last 30 years or so. We've had major relationships with microfinance institutions globally. But it was really on a sort of one-off basis. So we'd have a relationship in Mexico, or a relationship in Uganda, or a relationship in India. But there wasn't a consistent policy across the bank. In 2004, the bank decided that it should really engage the businesses of the bank, the consumer bank, the commercial bank, the corporate bank, the investment bank, to try and focus those areas of the bank on how they could serve the sector and partner with institutions to actually scale up and try and help the sector scale up and reach more people.
Thank you, Philip. Managing risk and achieving inclusion. These seem virtually impossible when you think about the state of the art of microfinance in certain situations and in certain countries. But you've proposed a very interesting framework which starts with clients moving into product design, followed by appropriate methodologies, and then informing the regulatory framework. Can you provide us with some very specific examples of how this framework has played out in some of the countries that you work in?
Okay. Well, the framework that I was providing was really just a normal business model for any business. That we start off with, what do you want to accomplish in terms of business strategy, and then what is the business model to achieve it. What we found is that, microfinance has been successful because it has evolved its own business model. It's focused on the clients, focused on the sector, focused how it can provide, from understanding the client needs to developing the appropriate products, to how can you achieve a viable business model to do that. And that includes the how do you actually touch or get or reach engage the clients themselves. I would liken it, I mean, on the product side, it's really a question of finding and designing the products that are actually appropriate to people's needs at the right cost, at the right efficiency, etc. An example today, it's a bit like the Tata Nano, being designed, that it's recognised that there is a need that people have a certain price that they can pay for that service, that they do need that, and the product has to be designed accordingly. Which I believe, I haven't seen a Tata Nano, but I believe it has only 3 wheel nuts or something and 1 windscreen wiper, and it's actually designed for the purpose.
Indeed. Thank you. But some specific country examples that you can highlight which come close to this framework in achieving the particular objectives?
Well, I think basically all the institutions that we deal with, in one way or another, have all the components. But it's really a question of how sort of joined up that is in terms of their particular focus, because the institutions evolve, and it's a question of whether they're evolving with their markets.
So, with specific reference to financial inclusion, where do you think you would emphasize this particular framework of client-centered approaches through appropriate methodologies? Would it work in a country like Sri Lanka, for example? And how would you work it?
Well, as I say, it's a fundamental part of the business. What we do see is differences between, as we go across the spectrum of microfinance clients that we have, different strategies. Some focus more on a broad range of products and livelihoods. Some are focused on basically a very small range of products, but producing them well
So
and
what
efficiently.
you're saying is that there's a flexibility in terms of letting 1,000 flowers bloom as long as they virtually embody all of the fundamental standards of good practice. But it could be a multiple service model, or it could be a very focused model of services. But as long as client-centered, as long as there's an appropriateness in product design as well as methodology, and it fits into the regulatory framework, it would be potentially a model for you to partner with.
Yes, I mean, we're looking at, let's say, different clients will determine, in terms of microfinance institutions, basically, there isn't one model. It depends upon the stakeholders, what they're looking for. The main focus at the end of the day is that they provide the appropriate services to their end clients.
Thank you. And lastly, could you tell us where you think the sector will be going in the next decade? We are now at 2010, getting ready for another long decade of microfinance innovation, good practices, and hopefully learning lessons from the past decade. And Citi and the family of Citi have continued to show a commitment to supporting the Banking with the Poor network, as well as the practitioner members in various ways. How do you feel we should be setting the roadmap for the way forward for the new decade? Where are the areas that we need to emphasize, and where do you think the sector should be focusing on in the next decade? These would, of course, give us themes for the upcoming forums and the messages. So if you could tell us where you would find this.
I think the theme of this conference, anyway, in terms of achieving financial inclusion, etc., is very important, because it sets the scene in terms of identifying the gap. And I think the focus now is more on how to fill the gap. I think Mr. Craig Wilson earlier on was talking about the 59% inclusion rate of bank accounts in Sri Lanka, I think it was, and the gap. How do we get from 59 to 100%? It's really the focus really on how we get there now, rather than looking at do we have a viable business model to get there. I think that the building blocks from a business standpoint I mean, technology, etc., and everything, all the various bits and pieces are there. Now, how you actually put them together to create the institutions that are actually going to achieve that, and whether it will be through microfinance institutions themselves, or through downscaling banks, or through service companies, or through mobile phone operators, or whatever, the ingredients are there. So I think the focus now is, and I think, as witnessed by the presentations and discussions here, is more a question of how does one actually take it to the next stage.
Indeed, and it seems to me that the trend that you have set with promoting partnerships and collaborative ventures, which include a range of networks that are going across global, regional and local lines, including both retailers as well as wholesale agencies, and a wide variety of institutional types in your dialogue, has really helped in achieving this goal. So we hope that you will continue.
Yes, I mean, our back in, I think it was 2005 or something, or I think it was 2005 or 2006, the Economist ran an article on microfinance, a special supplement. And in there, they basically said that Citi's greatest role was to provide a demonstration effect to others, that if we proved that it was a viable business for us to address, that others would follow. And I'd like to think that that is, has been the case. So what our thrust really has been, and I think one of our greatest accomplishments within the bank, is to actually engage the countries in the region, in Asia, to actually create, their own, identify who the clients are in terms of microfinance institutions in their market, establish business plans, and see what we can do to actually help those institutions. I mean, Citi has been in the region for a very long while. I mean, our roots here go back to the turn of the last century. Can't say turn of the century now anymore, but turn of the previous century. And we've likewise been in Sri Lanka for a long while now. So we are sort of embedded, and obviously want to support the community and local institutions as much as possible, especially as the financial institutions business is also a core area for, historically anyway, for Citi.
Well, 30 years and still counting, Philip. We look forward to a very long and fruitful collaboration with you. Thank you on behalf of BWTP.
Thank you.
Pleasure.